Just when everyone thought Ty Bordon's story had ended forever, Heartland brings a moment that no one saw coming. A moment that feels like time itself has stopped, like the world of Heartland is breathing again. Ty's powerful comeback in Season 20 isn't just a twist, it's an emotional storm that pulls Amy, the ranch, and every fan back into the place where it all began. This isn't just another episode. It's the return of the heartbeat that once kept Heartland alive. Ty Bordon's story has always been the soul of Heartland. When he first rode onto that dusty Alberta ranch as a troubled young man, no one could have guessed how deeply he would change every life around him. He wasn't perfect, he carried scars, anger, and a past that made trusting people hard. But Heartland wasn't just a place for horses. It was a place for healing. And slowly, through Jack's guidance and Amy's quiet kindness, Ty began to find himself again. He learned to fix more than engines and fences. He learned to fix what was broken inside him. From those early days, Ty became more than just a worker at the ranch. He became family. His bond with Amy grew like something unspoken, built on moments of silence and shared pain. They weren't just two people falling in love. They were two souls learning to breathe again. Every time Ty looked at Amy, you could feel the weight of everything they had survived together. Their love wasn't built on grand gestures, it was built on patience, forgiveness, and the kind of faith that doesn't fade as the seasons went by. Ty grew from a boy searching for purpose into a man with a mission. He became a husband, a father, and a protector. When he held baby Lyndy in his arms, it was as if everything in his life had finally come full circle. The ranch, the horses, the family, everything that once seemed lost was found again through him. His story taught us that even broken beginnings can lead to beautiful endings. Ty was more than just Amy's partner. He was her anchor in a world that kept shifting around her. And then, just when everything felt safe, life reminded us how fragile happiness can be. Ty's sudden illness and death left a silence no one could fill. It wasn't just a character leaving, it was the sound of a heart stopping in every fan's chest. Heartland changed forever. The show's tone shifted from comfort to grief, from togetherness to loneliness. Amy's tears became our own, and the ranch felt emptier without his laughter, his presence, his calm strength. For many fans, Ty's loss was like losing a friend who had been with them for years. But even after his death, Ty's spirit never left Heartland. You could feel him in every sunrise over the fields, in every gentle touch Amy gave to a horse in pain. His memory lived through the lessons he left behind, the belief that kindness heals, that love endures, and that every goodbye carries the promise of another hello. Ty wasn't gone. He had simply become part of the land he loved. And maybe that's why, when whispers of his comeback in Season 20 began to spread, it felt like something deep inside every fan began to stir again. The hope, the ache, the dream that maybe, just maybe, Ty Bordon's story wasn't finished after all. After Ty's death, Heartland felt like a different world. The golden fields were still there, the horses still ran across the open land, and the ranch still echoed with life, but for Amy Fleming, everything had changed. The laughter she once shared with Ty was now just an echo in the wind. Every sunrise reminded her of the mornings they spent together, sipping coffee on the porch, talking about dreams and simple joys. Now, those moments lived only in her memory. Amy had always been strong, but grief has a way of testing even the bravest hearts. For weeks, she moved like a shadow of herself. The ranch that once brought her peace became a reminder of everything she had lost. Every tool Ty used, every saddle he repaired, every horse he touched, it all whispered his name. Yet deep down, Amy knew she couldn't let grief define her. Heartland was more than a place of memories. It was a place of purpose. And if Ty had taught her anything, it was that healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means learning to live again. So Amy began to find small ways to keep going. She threw herself into her work with the horses, the creatures that always seemed to understand pain better than words ever could. Her daughter, little Lyndy, became her reason to smile again. Whenever Amy looked into Lyndy's eyes, she saw Ty, his kindness, his patience, his quiet strength. Those eyes reminded her that Ty's spirit was still alive, carried in their daughter's laughter and curiosity. Every time Lyndy asked about her dad, Amy told her stories, not of sadness, but of love. She spoke about how Ty once rescued a frightened horse, how he believed that every living thing deserved a second chance. Through those stories, Amy was keeping Ty's memory alive, not as a wound, but as a light guiding her forward. Still, healing wasn't easy. There were nights when Amy would walk out to the barn just to feel close to him. She would stand by the stall where Ty used to brush Spartan, running her fingers along the same wooden rail he once leaned against. The silence between those walls spoke louder than any words could. But instead of breaking her, that silence slowly began to teach her something profound. That love doesn't end when a person is gone. It changes form, becoming a strength that lives quietly within the heart. The people around Amy tried their best to help her heal. Jack, with his fatherly wisdom, reminded her that time doesn't erase pain, but it teaches us how to carry it. Lou stood by her, offering comfort and reminding Amy that she wasn't alone in this journey. And then there were the horses, especially Spartan, who seemed to sense Amy's sorrow. Whenever she approached him, Spartan would nuzzle her shoulder as if to say, "It's okay. You're not alone." Those quiet moments in the stable became her sanctuary, the space where she could cry, breathe, and rebuild herself. One heartbeat at a time. Seasons passed, and Amy began to rediscover her purpose. She took on new challenges, training difficult horses and helping others find the same healing that Heartland had once given her. Slowly, she began to smile again, not because the pain was gone, but because she had learned to live alongside it. She started to believe that Ty would have wanted her to move forward, to find peace in the life they had built together. And that belief became her strength. But there were still moments when the world would fall silent, and she'd swear she could feel Ty's presence in the soft rustle of the trees, in the warmth of the morning sun, or in the gentle sound of hooves on the dirt path. Sometimes she'd whisper his name into the open air, not expecting a reply, but knowing somehow he was listening. Because in Heartland, love never really leaves. It just takes on a different form, one that lives in the wind, in the earth, and in the hearts of those who remember. By the time season 20 begins, Amy is no longer the broken woman we once saw after Ty's death. She has grown wiser, calmer, more at peace with the past. But deep inside, that missing piece still aches. That silent question still lingers. What if Ty could see her now? What if there was more to their story? Amy doesn't know it yet, but her journey of healing is about to come full circle. Because sometimes, when you least expect it, life brings back the people you thought you'd lost forever, not to reopen old wounds, but to remind you that love never truly says goodbye. For years, Ty's absence had become a wound that time could not fully heal. Amy had learned to smile again. The ranch had found its rhythm, and life in Heartland moved forward, but a quiet emptiness always lingered in the air. It was as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for something or someone to return. Then, one day, everything changed. What began as an ordinary morning turned into a moment that would shake Heartland to its core. It started with the light. The sun rose differently that day, softer, golden, almost unreal. Amy was in the barn, brushing Spartan's mane, lost in thought, when a sudden calm filled the air. The horses, usually restless in the early hours, stood still, their ears perked, as if they sensed something beyond what the human heart could understand. And in that stillness, Amy turned, and there he was, Ty, standing near the open barn door. His familiar blue jacket catching the morning light, his eyes gentle, steady, and full of the quiet strength she had missed for so long. For a moment, Amy couldn't breathe. The world around her seemed to fade, and all she could see was him, the man she had loved, the father of her child, the soul she had mourned 1,000 times. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't move. She was afraid that if she blinked, he might disappear. But Ty didn't vanish. He just stood there, smiling softly, the way he used to when he was proud of her. That look that said, "You did it, Amy, you kept going." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it was quiet. like the moment before dawn, when the world holds its breath for the first light. No words were spoken. They didn't need them. Everything between them was said in the silence, in the way Amy's heart began to race, in the way Ty's eyes shimmered with something that felt like peace. The pain, the grief, the years apart, all of it melted into a single heartbeat of recognition. It was him. And yet, not him. He looked older, calmer, as if he had seen the other side of pain and come back just to tell her that love was still there, still alive, still hers. Was it real? Was it a dream? The show never gave a clear answer. Some say it was a vision, Amy's heart reaching across the space between life and death to find the man she could never truly let go of. Others believe Ty's comeback was spiritual, a message, a reminder that love doesn't die. It transforms. Whatever it was, it felt real. The camera lingered on Amy's trembling hands, on the tears she didn't bother to wipe away, on Ty's calm smile that seemed to say, "You're not alone." That moment wasn't just for Amy. It was for the audience, for everyone who had cried when Ty took his last breath, for everyone who had watched Amy struggle to find herself again. It was a gift, a piece of closure wrapped in the warmth of memory. Ty's reappearance wasn't about bringing him back to life. It was about bringing peace to the hearts that had carried his loss. He didn't need to speak because his presence said everything. I never really left. Not in that scene, Heartland reminded us why it has always been more than just a show. It's a story about family, about faith, and about the invisible bonds that hold people together even when life tears them apart. Ty's comeback wasn't just a plot twist, it was a spiritual awakening, a whisper from the universe telling Amy, and all of us, that love transcends time, loss, and even death. After that moment, Amy's life felt lighter. She walked through the ranch with a different energy, one that seemed touched by something unseen. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, only peace. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had softened. It was as if Ty's brief return had lifted the weight she'd been carrying for so long. She could feel him everywhere, in the wind that moved through the trees, in Lyndy's laughter, in the warmth of the sun that touched the fields they once rode together. Ty's comeback was not about rewriting the past. It was about reminding Amy and all of us that the people we love never truly leave. They stay with us in moments, in memories, in the quiet corners of our hearts. That scene was more than television. It was a message about the human spirit, about how we survive loss not by forgetting, but by carrying love forward. And when the camera faded out, leaving Amy standing in that golden light, a single tear rolling down her cheek, the world of Heartland felt whole again. For the first time in years, fans didn't feel sadness, they felt gratitude. Because Ty had returned, if only for a moment, to remind Amy and every viewer that some bonds are eternal. That even when someone is gone, love keeps riding beside us, quietly, faithfully, forever. The air inside the barn felt heavy, almost sacred. The moment Amy saw Ty standing there, her body froze as if her heart needed time to catch up with what her eyes were seeing. For so long, she had dreamed of this, waking up and finding him there again, smiling like he used to, alive in every sense of the word. But now, as she stood face to face with what felt impossible, she couldn't tell if she was dreaming or finally awake. Time stopped. Every sound, the soft rustle of hay, the distant call of a bird, the gentle creak of the wooden beams faded until there was nothing left but silence and the thundering beat of her heart. Her hands trembled as tears welled in her eyes. This wasn't the kind of crying that comes from sadness alone. It was everything: joy, pain, disbelief, and love, all colliding in one impossible second. For years, Amy had carried the ache of losing Ty. Every morning, she had looked at his empty chair, his untouched coffee mug, and reminded herself to keep breathing. Every night, she had whispered his name just to hear how it still felt on her lips. And now here he was, not as a memory, not as a dream, but as something real enough to make her knees weak. Amy took a step forward, unsure if she dared to reach out. The fear of breaking the illusion was almost unbearable. What if he disappeared the moment she touched him? What if this was just her mind playing tricks, a cruel gift from grief? But then Ty smiled, that quiet, gentle smile she had missed so much. It wasn't the smile of a ghost. It was full of warmth, of understanding, of love that hadn't dimmed despite the years. That's when Amy's tears finally fell freely. They weren't tears of loss anymore. They were tears of release. In that instant, Amy didn't see death or pain. She saw everything they had built together, every sunrise ride, every shared secret, every challenge they had overcome. She saw the man who taught her what love truly meant. And the words never passed between them. Something deeper did. She felt him telling her that he was proud of her, that she had done what he always knew she could: live. Not just survive, but truly live. Her heart ached, but in a different way this time. It wasn't the sharp pain of grief. It was the soft ache of gratitude. Amy realized that this moment wasn't about bringing Ty back. It was about setting both of them free. All those nights she spent asking the sky why were finally answered, not in words, but in this simple, beautiful silence between them. The silence that said, "It's okay now. You did it. You can let go." Amy closed her eyes, letting the tears fall, feeling the warmth of Ty's presence surrounding her. She didn't need to touch him to know he was real, because love, the kind they shared, didn't need proof. It was carved into her soul, stitched into every heartbeat. When she opened her eyes again, the sunlight through the barn window had grown brighter. Ty was still there, but now he seemed to be fading into the light, not disappearing, just becoming part of it. The same light that had always guided her, even when she thought she was lost. Amy smiled through her tears. For the first time in years, she felt peace, not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from acceptance. Ty's return wasn't about undoing the past. It was about reminding her that love doesn't end with goodbye. It continues in every laugh of their daughter, in every horse she heals, in every new sunrise that touches the Heartland ranch. When Ty finally vanished into the golden glow, Amy didn't cry out or chase after him. She simply stood still, her hand over her heart, and whispered, "Thank you," because she knew now that he hadn't left her. He had just become part of everything around her: the land, the light, the air she breathed. Later that evening, Amy stood on the porch where they used to sit together. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, the same colors as that morning when she saw him again. She looked out at the horizon and smiled softly. For the first time in a long while, her heart didn't feel heavy. She whispered his name, and though there was no voice in return, she felt a familiar warmth in the breeze that touched her face. It was his way of saying, "I'm still here." As the screen fades to black, Amy's voice echoes one final thought, not to Ty, but to everyone who has ever lost someone they love. Love doesn't end when a person is gone. It becomes the light that helps us find our way back to ourselves. And with that, Heartland delivers not just a scene, but a message, a gentle reminder that even in our deepest heartbreaks, love is never lost. It lingers in the air we breathe, in the memories we cherish, and in the strength we find to keep moving forward. Ty's comeback may have been brief, but the impact it left on Amy and on everyone who watched will last a lifetime. Because some stories don't need to end. They simply change form, living on in the hearts that refuse to forget.